For the royals, tradition is everything.
Tradition is the raison d'etre of the royal family, the human embodiment of Britishness.
Spectacular.
The thundering of the hooves and the banging of the drums. I defy anyone not to get thrilled by that.
Sacred.
It's almost as though the king is invested with superpowers.
And very British.
Victoria's funeral was a reminder that we were still the dog's whatnots at this game.
Now we reveal the secrets of those traditions. From banquets, to christenings, to coronations.
You may think it's pantomime, but no. The uniforms were handed down from servant to servant.
And how some traditions can go wrong.
With Elizabeth I, her body actually exploded in its coffin.
It's a rich royal heritage that's been forged through duty to the nation.
The British monarchy is always at the service of the British state.
No matter what the task.
The duty of the royals is to go and open every damn thing that's around, from a supermarket to sewage works.
The Queen loved it. Prince Philip hated it.
As for over 1,000 years, the royals have shaped the history and the traditions we know today.
They're sending out a message. This is an ancient institution and it's here to stay.
These are the secrets of royal traditions, then and now. This time, the jewel in the crown of royal traditions, the state visit.
This is the best invitation you could ever have.
What happens when world leaders flout centuries of tradition?
Jimmy Carter meeting the late Queen Mother and kissing her on the lips, and she was really shocked.
And how an ancient tradition was the perfect form of royal PR.
It weaponises the royal family.
No other occasion puts royal tradition front and centre, quite like a state visit from a foreign leader. All the spectacle and ceremony of royalty is on full display, and the whole world is watching.
A state visit entails a lot of pomp and pageantry. On the first day of the state visit, there's usually the state banquet. Everyone's dressed to the nines in all their sashes and medals. And there's a toast to the incoming president. There's a lot of flattery goes on, which is all intended to improve our relations with that country.
It's an event where royal tradition comes out in force. And for visiting leaders, the prestige of the occasion is irresistible.
To be photographed with the British royal family, the King and Queen, and with Kate and William, this is a photo opportunity which is rolled in glitter. It's the best invitation you could ever have.
And it's not just an elaborate state dinner and a photo op. Over the course of 3 days, foreign leaders are immersed in extravagant royal tradition. From a ceremonial welcome on Horse Guards Parade, to a carriage procession escorted by mounted soldiers, accompanied by gun salutes, and meetings with the Prime Minister, making a royal state visit a cornerstone of our international relations.
To be received by the British head of state at Buckingham Palace, this is a great signifier of your international status, and it's terrific business for Britain.
The tradition of the royal state visit can be traced back to 1814, when the Allied sovereigns visited the Prince Regent to celebrate the defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte. Dignitaries from Russia, Prussia, and Austria were greeted by guards of honor, ceremonial parades, and elaborate banquets. Traditions that continue to this day. Except these days, the royals are not in charge of the guest list.
It is not the palace who dictate who is coming. It is the government of the day who have an agenda.
And that means that sometimes when the government invites foreign dignitaries into their home, the royals have to grin and bear it.
The family are very aware that they are being used as a propaganda machine, really, for Britain and for another country.
Her Majesty the Queen
Perhaps the most unpopular visitor was Romanian dictator Nicolae Ceausescu, who was welcomed to the palace for a state visit in 1978.
Now, that was hugely controversial, and the Queen was very nonplussed about the idea of him quartering in her palace for 3 days and nights. And for those who need reminded, he was the most heinous communist dictator of all the communist dictators at that time.
He actually slept in the rooms underneath the Queen. Apparently, they slept with guns underneath their pillows. Every meeting was conducted in the garden because he feared the rooms were bugged.
The Queen actually, when they were in the gardens at Buckingham Palace and she saw them, she hid behind a bush. So unpleasant did she find them.
But whoever the guest, the British monarchy is not afraid to use glamour as a secret weapon.
For example, when Xi Jinping, the president of China, was hosted, there was a state dinner, and that was chosen to be the Duchess of Cambridge's first state banquet. The timing behind that decision was, I think, second to none. The Chinese state-run newspapers, they all wrote that she wore Chinese red. That's how they received it on the other side of the world. They were flattered. Big China, little Britain, but China, you are lucky because you are sitting next to, yes, the Queen on the one hand, but also, look, first time outing for the most glamorous player in the royal family. Lucky, lucky Mr. Chinese president.
The royals' clever seating plan was a masterclass in international diplomacy. This 3-day visit alone generated more than £30 billion worth of trade, many times more than the cost of staging a traditional royal state visit.
There are all sorts of situations in which we put our monarch for the sake of Britain's place in the world.
The royal women at the centre of these official ceremonies are part of a tradition of projecting a perfect regal image to the world. But it's an image that takes a lot of time and effort. And the late Queen was careful to maintain her image at all times. In 1953, she even had a special shade of lipstick created for her by Clarins to complement her coronation robes. And in her later life was known to be a dab hand at applying her lippy.
She did like her makeup, and I've watched her quietly and secretly put on her lipstick. She doesn't need a mirror. So she cared a lot about her appearance.
The original pioneer of this tradition of a picture-perfect appearance was Elizabeth I, who went to extraordinary lengths to create her striking look.
Queen Elizabeth I was actually about 55 years old when she sat for the portrait, but you could never tell. She wears what's called the mask of youth.
The mask of youth was a technique to emphasize her youthful appearance. This form of propaganda intended to show the Queen as immortal and bolster her image as a strong and stable monarch.
So this is Elizabeth I's makeup box.
These are recreations of the types of cosmetics that Elizabeth would have used as part of her war against aging. Are you going to try it?
Let's try it.
Absolutely. So cleansers, you've got several choices. There is a lovely recipe from the period which combines distilled honey with strong vinegar, milk and the urine of a small boy.
Okay.
Maybe give that one a miss.
And the key to Elizabeth I's perfect pale complexion, a powder made from white lead.
It's a very, very white powder on my finger, but when I put it onto my skin, it's actually not clown white.
It's actually pretty magical. It's rather fantastic.
It is. Lead is a metallic pigment, so
perfect white
reflects light.
Uh-huh.
And we still use all sorts of light-reflecting pigments today.
It's horribly toxic, isn't it?
It is.
What was it doing to these women when they used it every day?
It could make your gums recede and your breath stink. It can affect your fertility. It can cause confusion.
You're basically giving yourself lead poisoning.
Absolutely, yes. Sad thing is, they knew it was poisonous. We've known since the Roman period.
It's really comparable to how we use some dodgy substances on our skin today because we still want to look young and beautiful.
Absolutely. And we have been doing so for at least 2,000 years.
Elizabeth I's finishing touch was a dusting of real pearl powder.
We need a little colour in the cheeks and lips to finish up. OK, so we've got a choice between little dried cochineal beetles.
I'm not sure about having beetles on my face.
How about some vermilion?
Well, that's beautiful. What an amazing colour.
Gorgeous colour. This is red mercuric sulfide.
Oh.
It's mercury.
So it's mercury.
You'd struggle not to lick it off your lips if we put that on you. So out of the two...
I'll have the beetles.
The Elizabethan look is to cover quite a bit of the cheek.
That is quite bright.
It's a different look, isn't it?
Although the more toxic and outright lethal ingredients have been removed, it seems the Tudor Queen's cosmetic routine was not too far removed from the traditions of modern royal makeup.
Was it really worth smearing yourself with urine, lead, lard and crushed beetles?
So these ingredients have got an incredibly long history. Modern-day cosmetics that are known to contain things like synthetic urea, carminic acid, which is the colouring principle in cochineal, refined animal fats. These are all considered perfectly suitable for a modern-day monarch.
Incredible. Makeup is power.
Coming up, when royal traditions go wrong,
The pictures are quite comical, where he's blocking the Queen when they're reviewing troops.
make a statement,
You can't get rid of the monarchy. It's here to stay.
and turn the stomach.
The recipe is you grind down the skull of someone who suffered a violent death.
For over 200 years, the British royal family has been using the tradition of state visits to project Britain onto the world stage and keep international relations sweet.
It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King.
In February 2025, Donald Trump was given an unprecedented second invitation to visit, this time from King Charles via Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. It was received with delight at the White House.
The answer is yes, and we look forward to being there and honouring the King.
If you're in any doubt about the political impact of a state visit, just look at the way Donald Trump recently responded to a second invitation to have a state visit.
And that says at Windsor. That's really something.
There's something unquantifiably magical, the alchemy of monarchy, something wondrous, inexplicable, that defies logic, and it speaks to Trump. It's something Trump doesn't have. He's got every bit of bling that money could possibly buy, but he doesn't have the magic of monarchy. But we can bestow that upon him.
The tradition of US presidential visits dates back around a century when, after World War I, America emerged as a new global superpower. The royal traditions swung into action to greet President Woodrow Wilson on the first official US state visit in 1918.
Overseeing the ceremonial importance of this brave new world was our little king, George V. And it was seen as hugely successful. It was a fusion of old and new, royal and democratic, American and British.
And it may have heralded a new tradition of the royals not being in control of the invitations.
The king didn't want to host the American president. He was not consulted about whether he would host the American president. He was livid. He had to forego shooting pheasants at Sandringham to come back to Buckingham Palace.
Unhappy king or not, that inaugural US state visit was the beginning of a very important friendship.
The American president and his wife, Edith, had a very good time and came away with acceptable ideas of Britishness, of British power, of British history, of British decorum and manners. And I think that in some ways you can see that as one of the bedrocks of today's special relationship.
Subsequent visits from American presidents mostly reinforced that special relationship, with a few hiccups.
No. This room is full of mirrors. Where would you like us?
Sometimes the press have picked up on moments where royal etiquette and a more relaxed approach to etiquette from American presidents have interacted. Often, though, if you look more closely, you'll see the royals trying to smooth that over.
There is a wonderful story about President Jimmy Carter, a very sincere man, meeting the late Queen Mother and kissing her on the lips, and she was really shocked. Nobody had kissed her on the lips since her late husband had died, George VI. So that was perhaps a little over-familiar.
And there is a chance that those presidential faux pas may happen again. President Donald Trump visited in 2019 and upset centuries of tradition by walking ahead of the Queen.
The pictures are quite comical, where he's blocking the Queen when they're reviewing troops. So I don't think he intended any discourtesy, but obviously he always thinks that he's the most important person in the room, whoever he's in the room with.
But a lack of etiquette wasn't the only disruption of tradition that Trump brought with him.
When Trump arrived, the streets were lined mostly with people protesting his visit.
To avoid the anti-Trump protesters, the president defied tradition and made a very unconventional entrance.
Trump being Trump, flies over the protesters, lands in the middle of the Buckingham Palace lawns. All the journalists, including myself, were stationed on the lawn. Complete silence, waiting to see this momentous moment. He emerges from the helicopter. He thought he was going to meet the Queen, but it was Charles and Camilla who were the first to meet him.
It's not clear whether the Queen was entirely on board with this very non-traditional mode of transport.
I once spoke to an Air Commodore in the RAF who said that when he sat at a dinner with the late Queen shortly after Trump's state visit, she hadn't appreciated the way in which his helicopter had disturbed her emerald lawns at Windsor.
But the royal traditions of grinning and bearing it meant the Queen performed a masterclass in diplomacy, one that left Trump in awe of the royal family.
It was incumbent upon the late Queen to make sure that every head of state felt like he or she was her favourite head of state. And if Trump came away able to say with conviction that he was the Queen's favourite head of state or favourite president, then the Queen was doing her job well.
A royal state visit is one of the more flamboyant ways that royals keep their brand prominent on the world stage. But closer to home, they have created a tradition that has kept them at the forefront of our minds for centuries. The royal tradition of commissioning statues is a way of reaching as wide an audience as possible.
Now, this isn't just vanity. This is essential for showing themselves to their people. A statue was particularly helpful because it could be life-sized and it could be crafted according to what the monarch wanted to convey.
That tradition can be traced back to a perfect example of royal PR and the oldest surviving bronze statue of a king in London, Charles I, atop his horse in Trafalgar Square. It was commissioned in 1630, a year after the king had dissolved Parliament after a series of disputes. This tension escalated into the English Civil War in 1642, and it didn't end well for Charles I.
He was convicted of high treason against his people and he was executed. It was the end of the monarchy, so this statue had to be taken down.
Orders were given for the king's statue to be melted down, but the metalsmith hid it away instead. Its time to shine would come 20 years later.
It was brought back in the reign of Charles's son, Charles II, who restored the monarchy. And it was very symbolic because the statue shows Charles decked out in his regal finery, and it's the very image of royal majesty.
It was erected as a piece of royal propaganda. Even if in real life the man on the horse had his head cut off, it's like it's been airbrushed out of the story. That is one of the most effective uses of a statue. It weaponizes the royal family and any ideas of taking down the royal family.
Charles II was sending a message to his people. You can't get rid of the monarchy. It's here to stay.
In more recent years, the tradition of royal statuary may not have achieved such powerful aims. In 2024, a statue of the late Queen and Prince Philip was unveiled at Antrim Castle Gardens in Northern Ireland.
It's been heavily criticised. A lot of people have said that the Queen looks like Robin Williams in Mrs. Doubtfire.
I think it's rather fun, that public art, and sometimes it's a bit of hit or miss, but it's still a kind of expression of love.
The tradition of creating royal statues presented the monarch as immortal and in rude health, and recently the king's health has been the focus of public attention. Fortunately, he has a coterie of royal medical staff, including a personal doctor, physician, surgeon, and apothecary, ensuring he receives the very best modern treatments. Almost 400 years ago, Charles II had a rather weirder approach to medicine.
In the 17th century, the king built under St James's Palace in Westminster a secret underground lab, and that was where he engaged in the gruesome practice of skull medicine. Charles II loved chemistry, and when he became king, what he wanted to do was buy skulls and turn them into medicine so he'd never be ill again. The idea was that when you died a horrible death, hanging or something else that would cause fear, all the potency in your organs would rush into your flesh and rush into your bones. That if you ate these bones or ate this flesh, you would have loads of energy and loads of potency. The recipe is you grind down the skull of someone who suffered a violent death. Then you mix it with ground up deer antler and some ivory, mix it all up, and you've got the king's drops. Charles thought that would cure himself and anyone else of all diseases. So imagine fashionable ladies dancing at St James's Palace. Little did they know that under their feet there was a bubbling laboratory of horrors in which Charles was making medicine out of dead bodies.
In 1684, the king's drops would be put to their ultimate test.
Charles becomes increasingly frail. He wakes up feeling very ill, and they immediately give him the king's drops. Lots and lots, 40 drops, 50 drops. It doesn't work. He's dead 4 days later. Bizarrely, the royal family keep pots of the king's drops. It's a bit like when grandma dies and you keep her marmalade as a memory of her. So when Charles II's niece, Mary II, she's on her deathbed, they give her the king's drops. Doesn't work. She dies too. They are completely and utterly useless.
Coming up, the royals blazing a trail with their own traditions in the 21st century. From the sublime,
she very deliberately dressed down, and that included minimal pale makeup, the opposite of your Elizabethan power portrait,
to the questionable.
I was so sad when I saw that. There's nothing in that statue that resembles the beautiful, vivacious woman that I knew.
For centuries, how the royals look has been under constant scrutiny, and traditionally, it's the royal women who bear the brunt of it. Tudor Queen Elizabeth I used elaborate and deadly makeup to show the world her power. Today's royals have created a more understated tradition.
The late Queen had a beautiful complexion, and she didn't wear very much makeup. And actually, the Duke of Edinburgh once, he was talking to someone who said, Her Majesty the Queen, what a lovely, lovely complexion she has. And the Duke said, yes, she does. And, do you know, she's like that all over.
The Queen set a high benchmark for the look of modern royals. But like in many elements of royal tradition, the Princess of Wales is blazing her own trail. Her look is understated, but no less powerful than the royals of the past. In 2024, she recorded a video message revealing her cancer diagnosis. And she chose a very natural look.
She very deliberately dressed down, and that included minimal pale makeup, This was the opposite of your Elizabethan power portrait. This was Kate wearing her own physical vulnerability for us all to see. This was Kate sharing her pain. And that, ironically, enhanced her power. She has, I think, in the wake of her cancer hell, become almost untouchable in terms of one of our state players in this country.
And by creating this powerful video, the princess took control of the royal relationship with the media. A relationship that in recent decades has become strained to breaking point. But until the mid-20th century, there was a tradition of unquestioning deference from the press. The royals were seen as a vital pillar of a stable society that we all looked up to.
The idea that our monarch might be behaving in an unbecoming, immoral, irreligious fashion, that was absolutely perceived to be persona non grata. And that's why you get this very decorous press coverage.
But in the 1930s, this arrangement was pushed to its limits by the scandal emerging behind closed doors. King Edward VIII's affair with married American socialite Wallis Simpson. The world's press reported on it with glee, but not so in Britain.
It's all over the French, the Italian, German, American press, but Britain chooses to remain silent because of this gentleman's code that they have with the monarchy, which seems inconceivable to us today.
In October 1936, Wallis divorced her husband, and the king told Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin that he planned to marry her. Baldwin threatened that if the king went ahead with his plan, the government would resign and plunge the country into crisis. But still, the British public were oblivious.
It becomes clear that there's going to be a showdown between the king and the Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin about him wanting to marry a divorced woman. The press does break its silence, but it's months after everyone else has done it.
And the result was, when it finally breaks, a furore is unleashed. And we know that it doesn't last long. He PDQ abdicates within a year.
A few hours ago, I discharged my last duty as king and emperor.
It was heartbreaking and shocking for the British public because they hadn't been drip-fed these stories. It arrives like a sort of tsunami. And there's also an indignation, and rightly so, that how come people overseas know more about our royal family than we know about them?
There is only one statue of Edward VIII in Britain, in stark contrast to the dozens of statues of other monarchs. The tradition of creating royal statues has long been a way of commemorating dead royals. But sometimes the process doesn't go smoothly. In 2017, 20 years after her death sparked national mourning, William and Harry commissioned a statue of Princess Diana to cement her legacy. But creating a fitting tribute to Diana can be tricky to get right.
There are some very, very bad Diana statues out there.
They haven't really captured Princess Diana as I think the family would want her to be captured.
Whether they're made from marble or marzipan, from the sublime to the ridiculous.
There's a whole army of Diana statues in China, and who can forget the incredibly tasteless half-naked one that used to be in Harrods at the bottom of the stairs, barefoot with her and Dodi Fayed, both releasing a bird into who knows what.
Trusted not to add to this list, renowned sculptor Ian Rank Broadley was given the commission at the end of 2017.
Of course, we all know Mr. Broadley's work because his design of the Queen adorned every British coin.
The stakes were high for Mr. Rank Broadley.
The sculptor has to please not only every single one of Princess Diana's billions of fans, but also two royal princes who are very used to having things done their own way.
After a 4-year wait, the much-anticipated statue was finally ready. But in the meantime, the relationship between the two princes had deteriorated drastically.
If you look at 2017, when it was commissioned, William and Harry were best of friends. Fast forward 4 years later, there is a huge rift between the brothers.
William and Harry's strained relationship was at breaking point. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex had announced their intention to withdraw from the royal family and move to California.
Months before the unveiling of the statue, Harry has come out publicly vilifying the royal family, not just once, but several times.
So the story of the sculpture of Diana got overshadowed by the bigger question of, are the two brothers speaking to each other?
The statue was unveiled to the public on the 1st of July 2021 to mark what would have been Diana's 60th birthday. It was the first time the brothers had been seen together in public for months.
The press and the public were looking for the body language between the two boys. Have they mended the rift? Diana's two sons pulled the sheet off of the statue. This mother is looking onto her two sons, and all of us looking at that, knowing that they're barely speaking.
The statue was reportedly inspired by a 1993 Christmas card featuring Diana and her sons.
So you'll see, if you look at that Christmas card, she's wearing that exact outfit, the same belt, the same shirt, the same pencil skirt, and she's got her two boys next to her.
Cast in bronze, a traditional material for royal statues, it stands at 1¼ times life size. But it divided the critics.
I was so sad when I saw that. I mean, I knew Diana, and there's nothing in that statue that resembles the beautiful, vivacious, funny, stunningly handsome woman that I knew. It just doesn't work for me at all.
But not everyone disliked the statue.
Enjoy! Thank you. Thank you. I think the public really like it, and I think they get it. This wasn't a statue of a mother and her two sons. It was a woman who'd helped a lot of people, particularly children, in her charitable work. It's not meant to be overly complicated.
Unfortunately, the unveiling of the statue didn't bring the brothers back together.
Don't think that Prince Harry spoke to William at all, turned up for the unveiling 20 minutes before, pulled the rug off the statue and left 20 minutes later. So it was very sad to see that relationship had not been fixed at all and wasn't fixed during that event.
Coming up, the royal tradition of putting your foot in it.
He said, oh, you look as if you're ready for bed. I'm not sure that really was the right thing to say.
And how the tradition of respect between the royals and the press changed completely.
There are many invasions of their privacy, and it reaches its nadir when Diana, Princess of Wales, is quite literally chased to her death.
Traditionally, the royal family have played a central role in maintaining foreign relations, whether on state visits at home or abroad. And Queen Elizabeth II made it seem effortless.
The late Queen was the ultimate diplomat. I mean, she was more experienced as a head of state than any other head of state alive, and she knew so many of them, both past and present. So she had this wealth of experience and knowledge.
Her husband, Prince Philip, however, created his own tradition when dealing in foreign affairs. Putting his foot in it.
The Duke of Edinburgh sometimes did cause a few diplomatic ruffles of the feathers, I suppose.
You don't sound entirely native.
But I remember there was an occasion when he was in Nigeria. He saw the president, who was in his traditional robe, and he said, oh, you look as if you're ready for bed. I'm not sure that really was the right thing to say.
Prince Philip's job, I think, was meant to be a clown or a warm-up man for the serious act, which was his wife, really. But not appropriate
But it seems Prince Philip wasn't the first royal to cause offence. He may have been following a centuries-old tradition of diplomacy going out of the window.
James VI of Scotland, when he became James I of England on the death of Elizabeth I in 1603, even by the low standards of 17th century hygiene, was reputed to be rather a grubby king. James apparently had an aversion to water, never washed, didn't wash his hands before eating, never changed his clothes, and even his lover wrote that I kiss your dirty hands.
James I's personal hygiene may have left a lot to be desired, but when it came to entertaining a foreign head of state, it could be a riot.
One night in particular at Theobald's Palace, a night to commemorate the visit of King Christian IV of Denmark. You'd think this would be so dignified, so strict. Instead, it was apparently an orgy of drunkenness.
It's about as far away as you can get from a modern state banquet, but it was a success for international relations.
Both kings were heavy drinkers, and the evening's entertainment would be a performance of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. But unfortunately, when it began, everyone was completely drunk. The actor playing the Queen's part fell over and dropped an entire tray of cream and jelly and cakes all over King Christian. King Christian said, "I'm fine," and got up to dance, and then fell splat on his face and had to be carried to bed, completely drunk, senseless, and covered in cream and jelly.
For centuries, there was a tradition that the press would not report on scandalous behaviour like that of James I. But by the 1980s, everything had changed.
Previously, the quality papers and the mass newspapers had been quite deferential in their coverage. In the 1980s, the monarchy became tabloid fodder, and perfect fodder for them was the disintegrating marriages of the Queen's children, and all sorts of stories appeared.
The gloves were now off, and while dozens of news stories are published about the royal family each year, sometimes the royals use the press to send a message.
There aren't many photos that you can say are genuinely iconic, but I think you can say that about this photo.
The now iconic picture of Diana at the Taj Mahal was snapped by then royal photographer for the Daily Mirror, Kent Gavin.
I would think I've taken over maybe 2 million frames of the royal family over the years.
This was not the first time a royal had been photographed in exactly the same spot at the Taj Mahal. 12 years earlier, as Charles and Diana's relationship was starting to gather pace, the Prince of Wales visited India and Kent took an almost identical image.
In 1980, I was sent to cover the Prince of Wales trip to India. It was a year before the wedding. He agreed to visit the Taj Mahal. And during that trip, he said, "Do you know, the Taj was built from a man that loved a woman so much. One day, I'm going to bring my wife back here to visit this monument."
The opportunity arose in 1992, when the now married couple visited India. But instead of bringing his wife to the Taj Mahal, he met with business leaders. Diana sat isolated on a bench in front of the monument.
Charles did not fulfill his promise because Diana came alone.
The world press captured the iconic image. It told the story of a marriage that was falling apart.
It's the framing of the photograph in so many ways which makes her look so small and vulnerable.
If you look at all the pictures, she never smiles. God knows what was going through her mind. I genuinely think that she was extremely upset about it.
Diana understood the power of the image she created.
I think many people suspected that Diana was unhappy, but that photograph did feel like a message that she was sending the world. It just became such a totemic image of Diana's unhappiness.
The picture hit the headlines, and the press criticised Charles for abandoning Diana, cementing the idea that their marriage had already run its course. The relationship between royals and press soured even further. culminating in one of the most shocking events in royal history.
The criticism moves into an obsessive, intrusive interest in them. There do start to be articles that are wildly speculative. There are many invasions of their privacy. And it reaches its nadir in 1997 when Diana, Princess of Wales, is quite literally chased to her death by people in search of a photograph of her.
Despite this tragedy, stories continued to be published about the royals' private lives. And in 2006, a story in the News of the World broke a scandal wide open.
It related how Prince William had left a message for Harry in which he, William, had pretended to be Harry's then girlfriend, Chelsea Davy, reprimanding him for visiting a lap dancing club. All very jolly and joshing and all the rest of it, and very amusing in its way. But the fact that the News of the World quoted his actual words and his message really did set alarm bells ringing.
The police had all the evidence they needed. And in August 2006, journalists were arrested and charged with intercepting private phone messages involving the royal family. By now, the issue went far beyond the princes and their royal aides.
It turned out that phone hacking of celebrities, politicians, policemen, soldiers, victims of crime was going on an industrial scale.
Within a few years, more journalists from other newspapers were prosecuted for conspiracy to intercept communications without lawful authority. Some received jail sentences.
Fast forward to 2013, and a whole host of others from the News International titles were in court at the Old Bailey. William's phone had been hacked, Harry's phone had been hacked, Kate Middleton's phone had been hacked. We now know that William used to call Kate Babykins because of the evidence that was presented in the Old Bailey. And the only reason that Charles and the Queen hadn't been hacked was because they don't have mobile phones. That was the only reason.
Princes William and Harry, as well as hundreds of other victims, reached out-of-court settlements with the newspaper publishers, as well as damages. It's a stark reminder that from world stage and public statues to their most personal moments, the royals have to fight to preserve their traditions. And in an ever-changing world, the great public traditions, like the state visit, matter more than ever. Next time, the mystical traditions at the heart of the king's coronation.
Older than England, older than Christianity, back to the Bronze Age.
How the royals dealt with the traditional tensions of taking the press pack on tour.
Prince Philip hated the press. He called them reptiles.
And how centuries of tradition gifted the royals vast swathes of Britain and the right to eat some of its wildlife.
None of them have recently availed themselves of the opportunity, so the swan population continues unharmed.